Would you like to be Prime Minister?
Well, I would like to be the lead singer of an international rock group. I mean, that was my aim. Or guitarist. I would love to have been a world-famous painter, or indeed a composer. There are many, many things that I would like to have done or to be able to do.
But would you like to be Prime Minister?
I think it's a very tough job being Prime Minister. Very tough job. I mean, obviously, if the ball came loose from the back of a scrum, which it won't,
Might.
or of course it'd be a great thing to have a crack at, but it's not going to happen.
Do you have any doubts about your ability to fulfil the role of Prime Minister?
I think people who don't have doubts or anxieties about their ability to do things probably have something slightly terrifyingly awry. We all have worries and insecurities, but I think I've done it, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far in City Hall, and that's what I want to continue to do.
Well, let's speak to Michael Cockerell, who was talking there. Thank you so much for joining us. Very good morning. It must be so interesting knowing what you do, watching how things have played out. When you see that again, what are your thoughts?
It's extraordinary. It's the first time I've seen it again. I do remember when I was making this profile of him, he would duck and swerve and poo-poo all kinds of questions like that. But eventually, I got him to spill the beans, and he used that wonderful rugby analogy. Interestingly, of course, the ball has popped out of the back of the scrum because possibly you could argue that he kicked it out of the back of the scrum, which he wasn't meant to do.
That's exactly what I wanted to pick up with you. Did he, what are your thoughts? You know him, you know him well, you've talked to him many times. Was it purely political motives that he backed Brexit?
I just say one other thing on the back of the scrum thing. We do know that Boris is a ferocious rugby player, because there's that wonderful footage, which didn't exist at the time, where he's running in Japan at a 10-year-old boy, and he mows him down. When he was at Eton at the same time as David Cameron, they would play the wall game, and he was meant to be the most ferocious player of the wall game. And playing rugby, he broke his nose 3 times playing rugby while he was at Eton. So this is a competitive fellow. Ask me the question again.
Okay.
It
was a good answer, but yes, I'll press you on that, because you're sort of indicating really. But I asked you, did he back Brexit, leave, for political motives?
Well, this is one of the interesting questions. What are his real motives, especially with reports today that he's a bit astonished and concerned about what he's actually achieved. The Machiavellian theory is that he wanted to run the Leave campaign, but let Remain win by a small margin, and then he would be the favoured candidate to take over, because he'd had the courage to put his head over the parapet. The reason that people speculate, I think, is they're not sure quite how much of a Eurosceptic he really is. When he was a Brussels correspondent, he was very Eurosceptic, but then as Mayor of London, he was pro-immigration. He was very pro French people coming to live there. He looked as if he was pro us staying in the market and in the community, the European Union. But he did, just before, he kept everyone waiting. It's his favourite game, is to keep everyone waiting, having hordes of press outside his house. He went to his bolt hole in Oxfordshire, where he was filmed last night, and in February, just after David Cameron had announced the renegotiations, he sat down in his bolt hole, away from all the press, and wrote 2 articles for the Daily Telegraph as draft articles, because he knew he had to send his weekly column to the Daily Telegraph on the Monday. And one of them was for staying in Europe, and the other was for leaving Europe. And someone who saw both articles told me that the one for staying in Europe was the more powerful and the more persuasive. Now, I put that to Boris Johnson on the campaign trail when I was making a film for Newsnight earlier this week, and he said, I don't know where you got that information, but the one thing I can tell you is that the argument for staying in was that I would be loyal to the Prime Minister, but I thought that wasn't sufficient reason.